WordPress programmatic SEO case study. This video is just to introduce the project, what we're going to be working on. So I've bought a database of golf courses in the US. So there's 16,000, nearly 17,000 golf courses in over 8,000 cities, and the data, there's a lot of data. So there's a lot of information here that we can use to build a really good programmatic SEO website. And I imported it to the database here just so we can quickly see some of the fields that we have. So we have contact information, we have classification, whether it's private, public, whether it's a resort, the year it was built, all kinds of information here that we can use to build some really interesting templates that will provide value to people who are looking for golf courses. Maybe you're visiting the US or you're visiting out of state and you want to find what the dress code is for a specific golf course or whatever. And obviously we can incorporate the fees and stuff. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to do it with WordPress. I tend to prefer using code just because it's easier to manipulate some of these things. Like we could make these fees, for example, numbers, and then with code you can work things out. You can display them in different ways. You can calculate, like if you were booking a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you could work out what the cost would be over those 3 days. So you could do different things like trip calculators and stuff like that. So it's a bit more basic if you're using no code, but that's not to say we can't build out some really good templates. So there's another table here as well, which has information about the ratings of these courses. Some of these don't have any information. So the course ID here links to the course ID here. So what we're going to do first is look at some keyword research to see what kind of topics we could be ranking for. That gives us a good idea then of what to take into the templates when we import these into WordPress. And we'll also have a quick look at the how we can clean up this data source and maybe merge some of this stuff into one CSV that we can then import to WordPress and do some interesting things with in the template. So yeah, this is just a quick introduction. We're going to be building this golf website. I have a domain already, which I'll share as we go through the course. So I don't tend to do a lot of keyword research when it comes to programmatic SEO. All I'm really looking for is to find a group of keywords that can be repeated. So location is obviously an easy one. Golf courses in city, golf courses in state, golf courses in city and state. There's different ways you can do it. Location basis, and I've covered this before on my blog post, where really it's not that different to normal SEO. Like we're just trying to find topics that people are searching for and create a page that answers it. We're just going to use it with data and on a bigger scale. So need to worry too much. Like obviously these keywords, golf course in Fullerton, Riverside, Columbia, etc., probably going to be a little bit too competitive to start with, because we're going to be building a site from scratch. If we were buying an existing site that already had some backlinks and some history, probably we could jump in a lot easier. But when we're starting with a brand new fresh domain, we're probably going to be looking at even more long tail than this. So a few examples could be public golf courses in a particular place. So that instantly adds another keyword into it, which is even more specific than just golf courses in Fullerton. It would be private golf courses or public golf courses. And as you can see, private has a lot of traffic as well. So there's plenty to go at. Private, public, then you can start looking at even more niche filters based on the data that we have. We can break it down even further. So we could be looking at, for example, golf courses built in a specific year. People may be researching information about historical golf courses. So you can even pull this information in to build blog posts and other related content around that. You could even do, a great one will be golf courses designed by Jack Nicklaus, one of the greatest golfers of all time. So you can, you could do that for literally every golf course designer. Arnold Palmer, obviously, another very well-known person in golf, that you could create blog posts around these people, and then you just pull in the data from this database. Here, all the golf courses designed by Arnold Palmer, and then you add some context to that. You can look at things like cheapest golf courses, most expensive golf courses. Then you can expand that out into cheapest and most expensive golf courses in a city or a state. So there's lots of ways that we can take this data and create even more long tail, not just programmatic pages as you would expect, and you see in examples, but for blog posts as well. So we can reuse this data in multiple ways. Like, I think there was some data somewhere about how many bunkers are in each golf course. So you could do blog posts around the golf courses with the most bunkers, golf courses with the least bunkers. And then, there's a lot of content that can be brought in here that's interesting to people that play golf. So it doesn't always have to be a very specific sort of keyword research. Oh, there's 1.2k people searching for this. The difficulty is this, that, and the other. We can just use the data we have and just think outside the box and just look at what we have and how we can mix and match this data to find interesting things. So, for example, we could look at golf courses designed by Jack Nicklaus that are private, that are public. How old are they? There's all kinds of information that we can glean from this database to do things a bit different. And there's, just from the examples there's so much content that we could create. Again, it is easier with code because I can manipulate this, and you can much more easily produce these pages like programmatically on the fly. With WordPress and no code, we're going to have to get a bit creative, and I'll hopefully in a future video show you an example of what I mean about how we can do that. But it means multiple CSVs that we need to create from this. So if, for example, we wanted to do like this, at the minute this search is only showing 47 golf courses from Scottsdale, Arizona. So to do a Scottsdale only page, we'd need to export all of these results, which I don't know how you do. There you go, copy rows as CSV. So we can export those to a CSV, import that into WordPress, and then we could just have it as one page. So we could do that. You'd have to do it for every city and every state. So I'll probably do an example on a state level, because we may need to mess with this database a little bit to get it to work in WordPress without any code at all. And then I'll talk about like how we could expand that out to use code when it's in WordPress, or if you wanted to use WordPress as a sort of a trial run to see if you can get traffic with keywords at scale like this, and then maybe move to a more code-based solution afterwards. So in the next video, I'm basically going to look at cleaning up this data source, because as we see, there's a lot of fields here that don't have information. So we need to go through and try and clean it up as much as possible so that it's as usable as it can be when we build our templates. And that's in the next video. Okay, so before we dive in and start the import process in WordPress, most of the fields in this database don't have a description. There's other fields as well that don't have information, but we can get to that in the template. But description is going to be quite important. So what I've done is a very quick Python script just to show you how it could be done. And there's going to be a bit of code in this, but it's more for an example so that you could take this to a developer or figure out how to do this with Excel. You can concatenate the columns to create your own descriptions or to try and fill in blanks in the data to make it more usable. So this script, basically, what I'm trying to achieve is to create a description for all of these and also combine the course reviews. So for here, we've got all this information on course ID 2 about the ratings, so the length of the championship course, the length of the middle course, the forward and the other, and the slope. I'm not even sure what that is, but we can figure that out as we're writing the template. So I want to get this information into one table so that when we import it to WordPress, it's available in this golf course table. So this script does that. So it basically opens up the courses and the ratings. It fills in the blanks, which is really just a sort of concatenation function here that will build us a description based on what information is available. If we have information about how many holes, we include that. If we have information about the year it was built, we have that, add that in. If we have the designer, name of the course designer, we can add that in as well. And then when we run this, it will output a new database table that I can then export to CSV. Again, a developer can do this for you very quickly. This is less than 100 lines of code, and most of it was written by GitHub Copilot, which is AI. I didn't write most of this. One thing I did want to highlight very quickly is this thing here, ratings to list. So in the table here, we have multiple rows per course. So to add it to our golf course database, I want to create a list and I want to store that in just one column for one course. So what I'm doing is basically creating a JSON, which is a list of data, and I'll just run the script and then you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're just going to run this script. Off it goes. Done. So now, back in here, if we refresh this, I've got a new courses table. And what I mean is, so all the descriptions are now filled with our templated description. And then the last row here, it's a bit codey, but this is basically a list of the ratings for the course if it's available. So what I can do in WordPress is expand on this if it's available and use a small amount of code to loop over these to add them to the page content. So it's just another extra way to sort of make the data a little bit more usable for people. And I'll show you how I'll use this later. And again, this is sort of just an extra of how I would try and do something a bit different to what everybody else is doing with their data. So in the next video, we're going to dive into the import process in WordPress and get this site rolling. Okay, so before we dive into WordPress, I just wanted to quickly mention that in the data that I'm going to be using, I've added a slug column for the golf course and also a slug for the state and city. And the reason I've done that is that even though WP All Import would create a slug for us based on the title of the post, I want these because when we start to change this data to do archive pages, and I'm going to do an example where I do a page for each state, having these here means that I can link internally to those pages from the archives quite easily. So I want to have the flexibility to control my own slugs rather than let WP All Import do it for me. And you can use a tool like WTools has a slug generator, so you just type all of the lines here, so you could copy them from your CSV and then generate them and then copy the resulting output. So golf course 1, golf course 2, whatever. So you can literally just copy and paste from Excel and then copy these back in onto a new column. And that's all I've really done. I used Python, but you can use this if you're no code as well. And it will just be a bit more flexible for us when we come to make the archive pages. So WordPress. I've set up a WordPress site on golfnearby.net. This is basically a plain WordPress install. I'm using the GeneratePress plugin theme and a bunch of plugins here, which I'll show you about. So the first thing I want to do is set up the custom fields that we're going to use. And I've already done this because I'm prepared. So it's basically, I've just done a field for every single piece of data we have in the data set. And I've just labeled them. They're all text. You could get fancy down the road by changing these to numbers if you know that the data is numerical, and then you can do calculations on it and other things with code. But just to keep it simple, these are all text. And at the minute they're on post type post, but I'm going to create a new post type called courses to keep it out of here. So to do that, I use custom post type UI, which is a free plugin. So we're going to call this looks going to be course, plural is courses, and course. Populate that. I'm just going to put courses. I don't like the my part of that. And everything else can stay the same. It's basically they're going to create the same as a blog post in terms of being able to have categories, but it's not hierarchical, so you can't have sub pages. So I'm going to come down here. All I want to change is menu position to 5 because I want it near the top, and then menu icon. They have like a flag, like a golf course flag. We can use that just to make it look a bit nicer. We'll let this post in tags as well, and then add it. Okay, so now we have courses in our menu, which we can start the import process. So let's go new import. And I've already exported my database. So you've got your courses or your CSV, wherever it's come from, and then we're going to start that. Okay, we're going to create new courses from this. So the plugin will show you an example of the first row of data, so you can check that everything's working properly. If you're using a government data source or something that's not using commas, you can change the delimiter here to a pipe or a tab or whatever. But usually, if it's a CSV, we don't need to do that. So this is the main editor where we're going to create the template. And all you really do, the data for the row is on the right-hand side, and you just drag and drop it. So if we set the golf course as the title, then when we preview it, the title will be the golf course. And that's it. So we can start to write this out. Before visiting, and we can put the golf course name in again. And I know that in the data, both city and state is always defined, so we can do city state without worrying about whether or not it's going to be a blank field. Because some of these fields, for example, like annual rounds, like in this row, we have information, but in some of them, we won't. So I think if you skip to like the 4th or 5th row, we have an N. Now this is the main issue with doing completely no code in WordPress using this plugin or any programmatic SEO tool, is that if your dataset has blanks in it, you either need to prepare it before you import it or use some code on the front end here in WordPress so that we can only show information that we actually have data for. So I'll get rid of that. We know we have a description. And this is the other thing as well, by the way, with WP All Import, drag and drop is not very easy at all. It's actually painful. So we've got a description, which will bring that in. And this is one of our generic ones that we did. And then we need to start writing the template. And as I say, because there's a lot of fields that are missing and it's quite hard to tell, like there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's certain emails are missing, certain faxes, annual rounds or N or remarks. And there's a lot of fields that don't have data in them. So Club Pro doesn't have one. There's no designer on this one. So it's really hard to build a sort of generic template that encompasses all of the data, but also make sure we're not putting in blank fields. And so there's a few ways you could do it. Like I say, you could do it a bit more manually on the data cleaning phase before we import into WordPress. You could go through and make sure that every single row has all the data. You could remove rows that don't have data and have a smaller test site to see how it goes before you invest any more time or money into it. Or you could do it with a bit of code. And just for time, I'm going to do it with code. And the way I like to do it is with shortcodes. So if I just do address here, this is a shortcode that hasn't been created yet, but what I can do is create that shortcode and get data. And the way that I would do it is by using the advanced custom fields and adding information to it. So first of all, we need to fill out this by drag and drop. That didn't work. Try again. No, yeah, we did it. So that's city, county. Where's county? This is going to take a while. I'll just skip ahead because otherwise it's going to be very boring for you to watch this. Okay, so I've filled in all of the course info with the fields in the database. So now we can start to add more things. So we could do maybe a course table. Because we don't really know ahead of time what information is going to be available, it might be a nice thing to just do a course information in a table. And all I'll do again is I'll just do a shortcode called course table, which can output that information. I know this is a bit of a cheat. It's not completely no code, but I do think that it will give you some good ideas for how to make better programmatic sites. If everybody was just doing templates with complete data sets, then there's no real competitive advantage to you. So I think just seeing how this would be done is a really good way to hopefully come up with some new ideas that other people aren't doing. So we'll do FAQs as well. So this is a way to add some content to the page for search terms, long tail keywords and that kind of thing. And for the template, I'm going to leave it at that for now. I'll do another example case study later where I have all the data, and then we can do proper templates in here that is a bit more robust. So there's options in here for rank math. So we could just do golf course in city and state, and this will set the rank math title to that. Description, we can just use description. Okay, I don't think we need anything else on that. And then the other thing we want to do is set close comments and trackbacks, post slug. So we want to use the slug that we created. Okay, because then we have that in our database anyway, so that when we create the state pages, we have the links already to this. And you can do other stuff here, like changing when the dates were published at random dates. You can go anywhere from years back. If April 1st to August 8th. Okay, and then we'll save this as courses and then continue to step forward to do the import. And we'll come back to this and edit the template later. So unique ID, if your table has an ID field that you know is unique, you can use that. Otherwise, you could use golf course plus city plus state. You could do different things to make this completely unique. WP All Import uses this when you re-import the data later to update those posts. So it's really important that you have something that's unique. Okay, so we're going to create new courses from the records that are newly present. We'll update existing ones We'll skip any if their data has not changed, and we're going to update all data. And obviously we can't schedule anything because the file, it needs to be a remote file or download from URL. If you're using a specific type of server, you can change these settings to optimize the speed of it. And I'm just going to click continue. And the import process will start. No, I don't want to save that. Let's go in, let's import 16,862 posts. This is going to take a long time on this cheap server. So I'm going to pause the video and then come back when it's done. Okay, so while this is importing, it's taking a long time because this server is nowhere near as good as my Mac. But what we can do is, some posts have been created already. So here we've got one for Livingston Country Club. So we've got the introduction, we've got the description that we created before we imported, and we have our shortcodes. So what we can do while we're waiting for the rest of the import is to just try and build out these shortcodes. So what I did is I wrote this simple function for WordPress, which basically just gets the address field from advanced custom fields, the city, the state, all the information that would entail an address. And then if the main address field's not there, then we're just going to return nothing. We're not going to show an address. And then if we get to this point here, then we'll create some HTML. So we'll have a H2 with contact details for the golf course, and then we'll create the address. All it's really doing is taking each piece of the address, starting with the address, city, and state. So first line of the address, city, and state, and then if there's a zip, it adds that. If there's a phone number, adds that. Same for email and website, and then it returns the HTML. So and then it adds the shortcode, just called address. So if I copy this, then back in this plugin, snippets, we just click add new, and we'll just call it shortcodes. We can keep all of our shortcodes here. It depends how you want to do it. Some people prefer to have one snippet per function or per shortcode to make it easy to find. Whatever works. So this is going to create the shortcode. So we'll save changes and activate. So when we come back to the Livingston page and refresh the page, the address now becomes a piece of content. And it wasn't very difficult to write this code. I mean, I used AI. If I show you, like, we can literally, it will pretty much do it for you. See, get field, course, zip, city. It does it for you. Like, I'm not actually typing anything. It's just guessing what I need, and it's pretty much accurate. Obviously, country's not there, so sometimes you would just have to delete it, but it's quite easy to use this AI tool to do that. And again, developers can do this very simply, very quickly to write these functions. I mean, this probably would take a developer, this will cost $10 on Upwork at a push. That's like an upper limit. It's so simple to write for somebody who knows a bit of PHP and WordPress. So don't be afraid of using code, because it is a bit of a superpower when it comes to programmatic sites. And I'll show you how I did the FAQs one as well. What was the other one I had? Oh yeah, the course table. This one's interesting. So because all of our data is stored in custom fields, we can use this function from ACF, which gets all of the custom fields that are applicable to the post or course that we're on. So then I can create a table, and then I can loop each of these fields. I'll exclude these ones because we're already using the address in the other shortcode, and I'll exclude the description because we've already put that in the content. And then the ratings one that we talked about in the last video, I'm going to do something special for that later. So all this is going to do is loop through all these fields. If it's in the exclude list, we ignore it. And if it's not, we add a row to our table. And then we create the course table. And again, like, I didn't even know that this get field objects function existed. I literally just put this, and then the AI did it for me. It's doing get fields now, but it was doing get fields object earlier, and I'd never heard of it, but it seems to work really well. So let's head back into our shortcodes, and then we can add this at the bottom here. So now we've got the course table shortcode, and we save that. And when we refresh the page, we now have a table of information, and we can style this out and make it look nicer, but already we've added some value here. Oh, course ratings is not being ignored there, so we need to change that. Could have sworn that was in the list. Course ratings right there. Well, I'll figure that out, but as you can see, we've got some good data, and this is already stuff that people will be interested in. So visitors to this site that want to go to Livingston Country Club will have some information here, and eventually we could make these links. Like once we have a page for Alabama, we can link that. If we decided to do county level or city level, we could link those as well. So there's lots of options here to make this better after this initial run. And then the final shortcode is this one, the FAQs, which is a bit more complex. It's really only if this then that. That's all it is. So we get all the information, the name of the golf course we're going to use as the title of the post, and then we get information about the type of grass off the green, the fairway, the dress code, how many annual rounds, the season, fees, all this kind of information. So we start with an empty string, and you can show this to a developer if you have it as a developer, and tell them this is the kind of like shortcode that you want to create, and they can do it. So first of all, we're checking if weekend fees and weekday fees are the same, and if they are, we add. Well, first of all, we're checking, if weekend fees and weekday fees exist, then we add the H3 FAQ. If fees are the same, we say it costs the same to play on both weekends and weekdays. If they're different, then we put the individual values in, weekend and weekday fees. Then we can check if the green and fairway values exist, and if they do, we can add a FAQ about use on the course. We can do the same for dress code, annual rounds. With this one, actually, we want to make sure that annual rounds exists, but also that it does not equal the letter N, because that means there are no rounds. Okay, so with that, we can then add how many rounds of golf are played each year, estimated number of rounds, and we're just adding in these variables here that we defined at the top of the function. So greens aerated is a bit more difficult because the value is stored as months of the year separated by spaces. So we need to break them up into a list, and then I'm just looping through here. So if there's more than 2 months, we do a comma and, otherwise we just do and I'll show you what that means in a minute, but it just makes it like a sentence list. It takes each item and makes it into a list. And then here I've just put a very small amount of information about what aeration is, why it's useful, and when it gets done at this specific golf course. So this one's the more advanced function. It's still quite simple if you know code, but there's a little bit more to it than just the other ones. So we'll go back in, add this one, and let's see if it works. Save changes. And now we have some FAQs. So this is really interesting. So it changes for each one. Obviously the template is the same. And it would be very difficult to do this in the editor itself in WP All Import, just because of the way they do it is not particularly intuitive or user-friendly. So this is why I prefer to do it with a small amount of code, because you can just throw a shortcode in and then have your developer that you have already, or you work with on Upwork or whatever, to quickly create shortcodes. And also because with shortcodes, you don't need to re-import the data. Like, you can see how long this is taking. This is like a $10 server with Cloudways, and it's taken 16 minutes to do 1,000 rows. It's going to take a long time to do this import. And so if down the road I want to change the template in any way and re-import it, it's going to take the same amount of time again, which is slow going. So with shortcodes, store all the information in custom fields. And as you can see, we've got 242 posts there. We store all the information within the custom fields. It means that we don't need to re-import every time we want to change something. We can just change the functionality of the shortcode. And in a future video down the road, I might be able to show you how we could do that in a more visual way. There's ways to do this kind of stuff with Generate Blocks, which is the plugin from the same company that makes Generate Press. So we can make it more visual, the process of creating, like we could create this table more visually. But for now, I think this works pretty well. I've just noticed that the aerated comma separated list doesn't work, so we need to fix that. And that's why, because we set up the list, the text, but we didn't put that in there. So change that, save that, put that back, March and September. And if it was 3 months, it would be March, comma, April, comma, September. So that's quite cool. I'm quite happy with that as a first version. And in the next video, I'm going to wait until this import is finished, but in the next video, I'm going to show you how we could do archive pages on a state level basis. And they're really important, not just for users, but also for indexation, because there are pages that will have links to all of the sub pages. So all the golf courses that are in Alabama will be listed and linked on that page. So then those pages are the priority for us to get indexed. So we can go out to use indexing tools to get the state level pages indexed. And that makes it easier for Google to find these internal pages. And hopefully we'll have a very good index rate and get most of these courses indexed in Google, because they have got some good content on them. And as an example, just before I finish this video, because it's starting to get long, I found a website here which is about the best public golf courses, and this is what their course page looks like. That's literally it. And so once ours has been designed and has some polish to it, we've already got more information on the golf courses than theirs, and they're ranking. They're getting 20-odd thousand visitors a month, almost no links, no domain rating. So I think we've got a real opportunity here to build a great website. But I'll leave this importing probably until 2023, and then we can come back and do the next video. So we've now imported all of the courses. I've moved to a local test site because it's a lot quicker to do this, and it will speed the videos up. So I've moved it all over, and we've got all of our golf courses in the courses section with all of the information exactly as we had it in the previous video. Now we need to look at doing state level pages where we can link into these and then try and use that as a way to get the site indexed. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a new post type, and I'm going to call it state. We're just going to do the exact same thing again that we did with courses. And this time we'll put number 6 in the menu item, so it's just below courses, and then icon. We've got some sort of location type thing. That might do. That's okay. We don't need categories and tags for these ones, so I'm just going to put that in. And now we've got our states. Next step is not to do the import, because what we need to do is look here, and we need to figure out a way of using this 16,800 odd rows and convert this or manipulate this in a way that we can get a list of 50 rows, and then in one of those columns will be a list of all the golf courses for that state. Now, this is going to require a developer most of the time unless you can get creative. So I've written a Python script to do it, which is basically here. So all it's doing is finding all of the golf courses with the slug, city, state, and the fees for each state that we have. And then I'm actually going to build the HTML right here in the function. Okay, so I'm building the row here. So for every course in a given state, we're going to create a row on a table, and then we're going to wrap that in a full table. So, and this took me about 20 minutes, a developer, maybe half an hour to an hour's worth of their time to do that. It gives me this CSV here, 2 columns, state and table, which is all of the information. So with that, we can go back to WP all import. Where are we? Do a new import, upload a file, states. We'll create it in the states post type. There's our HTML already rendered for us, so we don't have to do anything with shortcodes in this one. And this is another example of a way that you can do this. It just means that if anything changes, you would need your developer or whoever to regenerate this. But for now, that's pretty good. And we're going to generate 50 rows. So for the title, we'll do golf courses in. Drag this over. And then in theory, oh, bloody hell. There we are. In theory, I should be able to just place that there and it should render a table. And it does. And all of these are internal links to all of them. Now I could have ordered this list, and that's probably something I should have done, is order it alphabetically or whatever. This is just in a pretty random order, which I think is fine for now. We can always come back and change it later if we need to. So that's that done. The other thing I want to do, because I'm setting it as golf courses in state, I just want the slug to be state. I don't need the, because it's already going to be /state and then the name, so we don't need to have anything else. I'll save this template for now just as state. Use that state ID if it will let me drag it. I'll leave that because I might want to update this later even if data hasn't changed. Okay. Never. And let's quickly import these. Okay, so that's done. 50 states have been created, so in the states list now, we have them all. So we can have a look at Wyoming. And there we go. So this is like an archive page for us now. And obviously over time, we could amend the data set and we could have information about this particular state. And in fact, let me just show you what I mean. Let's go back to manage imports, states. Let's edit the template. And then I think the best thing we can do here is add a little bit of an introduction onto the page. So let me quickly do that. So we're going to put something along the lines of, on this page, you'll find information on the state course count, golf courses we have in our database. Okay. you'll find information on the account golf courses we have in our database for Alabama. So we can use this shortcode here and we can create a shortcode for this. So I'll update the template and then I'll just run the import again. I'll skip past all of this. Okay, that's done. So when we change this, we've now got the intro text. And again, we can put more information later as and when we get it. Okay, so I realized that because I'd actually created HTML here, I couldn't shortcode. So I had to quickly go and change my script to give me the count with the number of courses for each state that we have. And that means I don't actually even need the shortcode. I can just put the count. Now obviously if there's more than 1,000, it's not going to do the prettified comma separated thousands, but we can fix that later if we need to. So there you go, that's better. That's better. We don't have to do anything with the shortcode now. We can update that and we can run the import again. Skip this. Okay, that's done. So now when we refresh this, we should have the count. 50 courses for Wyoming. And each of these clicks through. We could now that we've got this kind of a situation with a state/state name, in any of these pages, we can change the code here to link to that. So you can now start to do more internal linking. So that's just a way that we can do the archives. What we can do now from there is try and build out a home page, probably linking into the states. So a nice way to do it is home page into states, individual golf courses. And that's quite a nice structure. We can then do breadcrumbs. So we've got as well, and Rank Math or any SEO plugin that you use will add the schema in there so that will be shown in Google results. And then after that, we can look to try and design this and make it look a little bit less rubbish. And I'll show you some ways that we can do more internal linking, which I do on my programmatic sites that I do with code, but we can try and do it with WordPress as well. Maybe a bit of code. This is becoming more of a low code build, but I have actually got other projects that I'm currently working on and recording videos for, which will be completely no code. So there's going to be something for everybody as part of these case studies. So in the next video, we'll have a look and see how we can build out this homepage and try and design the site. Okay, so since the last video, I've added to the field groups in Advanced Custom Fields, the state slug and the city slug. I only really need state for now, but I thought I might as well do this. So I reran the import and now I've added a link here. So we've got an internal link to the state pages from here. And I did that in the shortcode that I did in snippets. So in here, I just added a little piece here to add a link to the state. So now we have an internal link. So in this video, we're gonna design the site a little bit and just make it look a little bit less bare bones and do a home page as well. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just give it a very, very simple, minimal design, just change a few things around and then come back and we can do the homepage live. So I'm going to try and design this to look a little bit nicer and just maybe add some branding and stuff up here. But I'll do that and I'll speed this up to get to that point. Okay, so I've put a very quick lick of paint on here, just added some green logo, put a little tagline in, keeping it very simple. If the site were to take off, then I would probably go back and invest more time in this. But for launching a new site, it's best just to get something out there. And pretty much all of my sites look very basic like this, because there's no need for them to be anything other than that. I just want to get the information out there, and then I can change things later if I need to. So I've just colored the table a little bit, changed the font, and now, before I move to the home page, I just want to quickly show you how we could do some internal linking using WordPress and using the information that we've got. So on this page here, we know that Wheatland Golf Club is in Wyoming. I've done the internal link for this, and so I can easily just have that link there. But what I want to do is to try and give us the best chance of getting indexed is to show more links to other golf courses on this page. And one way we can do that is by just having a random list of golf courses that are in Wyoming in the sidebar. So how we could do that, what I've done, I've installed the Generate Blocks plugin. This is the free version. There is a paid version as well that has some extras, but this is the free one. I've also included Generate. So this is a paid plugin that expands the functionality of GeneratePress. It's really affordable, and it is worth its weight in gold. It really is. So I've installed that, and we're going to use these two in combination to create something. So in Appearances and GeneratePress, you need to make sure that Elements is activated here. And then in the Elements part here, we can create different pieces of content that can be added throughout the site. So if I go to Add New Element, we want to choose Block. There's other options that you can just affect different parts of the site. We're going to use Block. This is their newest one, and it's really helpful to visually. Okay, so we're going to call it State Sidebar List, and we want to show it on course pages, all courses. And then in the hook, there's a list of hooks. These are different places within WordPress and GeneratePress that you can add what we're going to build. So we want something in the sidebar. So you can do, depends whether you're running a left or right sidebar. I'm going to do it after the right sidebar content. So it will end up below any other content that I have in the sidebar. So first of all, I'm going to put a container, which is a Generate Blocks container, and I'm going to add a class to it of widget. This just means that it will then match the other sidebar widgets in WordPress. So from there, we'll add a headline. And headline's important. This is another Generate Blocks block. You could obviously have the built-in heading, but what's useful about this one is that it has dynamic options. So we can pull information from post meta. So the meta field name was course state, and that's what we set in ACF. So in Advanced Custom Fields, we had that. And then before that, we'll just put more courses in space. And then in theory, that should fill in with the state that we're on any given page. Okay, that's done. The next thing we need to do is use a query loop. And this is that, again, there's two of them. It's the blue one here in Generate Blocks. We'll probably go, we just want really as a sidebar list. So we just want that. So if we click the query loop here, we want to do courses because we want to show all of our courses. And I don't think we really need the date. So I'm going to delete that, and it should remove them from all of them. By default, these are H2. So I'm going to change that and just make it a paragraph. Now, what we need to do, so at the minute, this is just getting all of the courses just in published date order, which is fine, but it means that it's not going to actually show us the posts that are specifically in a given state. So if I save that, if I publish that, and then go back to courses, let's have a look at Wheatland. So in the sidebar, we've got now some of these. Well, they are all in Wyoming. Some of these must not be. Oh, maybe it's just done all of Wyoming, because I haven't changed that. This is just showing it in post order. So if I go back to this and list I need this. Bloody hell. Right. If I put 100 in there and updated it, and then came here, now we've got 100. I'm pretty sure it's not just pulling from Wyoming. No, because there's North Carolina. So we need to filter this, and we could leave it at 100. That's a lot of internal links, probably a bit overkill. Maybe go to like 30. I tend to do about 30. So what we need to do is filter this so that we only show the courses from a specific state. And to do that, if we go here, you can see the container and the query loop. We need to open that down. And then on this grid element, we need to add a class. And if we call it something like state courses widget, we're going to have to use code to access this and filter the list to only be applicable to a certain state. So if we update that, nothing's going to have changed. We go back, we need to go to snippets and add a new snippet. I'll just call it generate blocks. Now this code is pretty much copy and pasted from the generate blocks support forum. So what I'm going to do is paste it in here. So all it's doing is adding a filter to the query loops. It's looking for a class name, and it's looking for the class name that we added, state courses widget. It's going to set the array key as course state, and it's going to be, the value is going to be what's on the current page. So it's only going to list states, courses in a state that we've already got on the page we're currently on. And I also added in order by random, so it just picks a random one every time. So if we activate that and go back to any of these posts, it's now going to show a random list of 30 golf courses that are all in North Carolina. So all of these are in North Carolina, and it's a random list, so every time the page loads, a different link list will be there. And this is really good for SEO and for indexing, because every time the Google crawler visits one of your pages, there'll be links to different courses on there. So if you got maybe 20% of your pages indexed, each one of those will have a different set of links to other golf courses, which gives Google more opportunity to crawl those links to find other golf courses that it can then index. So it's just a clever way of doing it. I do this quite a lot on my programmatic sites, randomly generate a list. And what we could do as well on the state page, because the state page is looking a little bit more sort of sparse here. So we've got the list of courses, which has been nicely styled as well. But we could potentially also show a list here of some random golf of other states. Sorry, we could just do a list. We'll just stay on the state page, and we could do that. And if I go back to appearance and elements, we can do add new element. We'll do a block. What should we call this? State page sidebar. And this one is even easier really, because we just need a list of all of the states. So we'll do container again. And we'll add widget as the class. we need a headline, and we'll just put find courses in other states. Query loop again, same again, and this time on the query we'll change it to states. We'll delete the date, we'll change that to a post, and then we can actually post per page. There's 50 states, we might as well have them all. And then we can add a parameter here so we can sort. Where do we sort? Order by title. And then add a parameter, order ascending. Now we've got a list of all states in alphabetical order. So location, we'll do state, all states. And then in the hook, we'll do the same thing again. After right sidebar, publish that. And now, on all of our state pages, we've got links into every state. And we could put this really on all of the pages. We could put them on the individual ones as well, just to have even more internal linking. It's entirely up to you how you go about it, but that's already looking quite nice. So we've got our page here. I'll get rid of these widgets because we don't really need them. So before I create the home page, I'm just going to quickly amend the state import and remove golf courses in from the title and add it instead to the Rank Math SEO title. Just because when I list the pages out on the home page, I don't want to have golf courses in. I just want the state name, so it looks a bit cleaner. So I'll save the settings on the template there and then rerun the import. I'll skip this. Okay, that's done. So now all of our states are just the state name. So when I create the home page, it will be a bit cleaner. So first of all, we'll go to a new page. We'll call it home. And we need to do the same thing as we did with the state page sidebar, and that's to create a query loop. And we just want to show the state pages. So we'll add query loop. I'm going to do a 2-column one, so it looks a bit nicer. We'll change it to states, and we'll do 50. And then again, we add the same order by title, and order is ascending. So we've got them in the A to Z list. We don't need the date or the excerpt. So now we've got this grid, which can be tidied up. And if we went back, we could potentially add more information. We'd have to redo the import and add some metadata, but we could potentially have a blurb here, like click here to see however many golf courses there are in Alabama. So there's ways that you can enhance this out to make it give more information to the user. For now, I'm just going to keep it as a straight list. I'll design this really quickly to add some shadow. Okay, so I've basically set this up to be a 3-column grid. I've removed the sidebar in using the sidebar layout options of GeneratePress. And now we have a home. And we can add text here to make it more compelling to people landing on the page, explain what the value of this website is, and add things over time. But this is a good starting point. I'll just quickly change the homepage title to a keyword, golf courses near me. Search 16,000 plus US golf courses. And that's the homepage done for now. So we'll update that. And then we need to go to customize homepage settings, static post home. Done. Now we'll go widgets. Of all the good things that WordPress have done recently, I really do hate the sidebar widgets in here now. So get rid of that. What's this one? Get rid of that. Recent comments. See, generally I turn off comments on WordPress because you get a lot of spam. But for a site like this, where we actually have golf courses and information, it might be an option to redo the import on the golf course pages and enable comments. You can block out things with links in so that you try and stop people from spamming the website. But I think you could possibly have like information like a sidebar widget here, which has people commenting on these courses, what's good, what's bad. You could add, there's plugins in WordPress that allow you to rate posts, like a front-end user can rate something. So that might be an idea to just enhance this even further. And you could show the ratings in your searches. You could maybe have a filter by ratings in a specific city or state as well. There's plenty of ways that you can take this even further, but this is not a bad start to a programmatic site. It's still very bare bones, but I've seen a lot of sites with significantly less content than this get a lot of traffic. So the other thing we could do as well on the state pages here is maybe have a map, and then we could pinpoint all of these on the map. On these pages here, we could have images of the golf course, a map of directions of how to get there, because there are some of them have directions in there, but we could really go through this, hire a virtual assistant to enhance the data set even further and expand the frequently asked questions. There's so many options. I actually noticed on the website that I bought the data from. So I bought 16,000 golf courses in 8,000 cities, and I noticed, I mean, that's $299. I paid $100 for it, so it obviously put the price up since I bought that. But there's another one here that has 20,000 golf courses, and it has 88,000 images as well. It's a bit more expensive, but it includes images as well. So there's plenty of options for, and the more you can get in terms of images and data sets on here, they've got a bunch of different tables with all kinds of information about difficulty ratings and stuff. I probably should have used this one, but what we've got is a good start. So what I'm going to do is get this live on the site, on the golfnearby.net, and then on the next video we will do some indexation, try and get these indexed and see how Google responds to it. So the site is now live on golfnearby.net. I've added a quick title, an introduction to the home page, and then we have the links into the states, which we created in the previous video. So in this video, we're going to quickly go over station tips. And the main one really is we've already done. So we've already done these landing pages by state, which links into all of the golf courses for that state. And then we've added some extras on the sidebar, which is all of the states. And then on the individual golf course pages as well, we've created this random list of other golf courses in the state that this one is in. So this will help us to get as many internal links between these golf courses as possible to hopefully help Google to find them. So what we'll do is go into RankMath sitemap. So RankMath has created this sitemap for us, and it's split out all of the courses into individual sitemaps, each of them containing 200 URLs by default. which should make it nice and easy for Google to find them all. Generally, if I'm doing a programmatic site with code, I would try and limit my sitemaps to 10,000 at a maximum. You can do 50,000, but from some pretty smart SEOs that I follow, they've experimented with this, and 10,000 is about the sweet spot. With Rank Math and WordPress, you don't have to worry about it, so it doesn't really matter. We can just take this as is and then put it into Google Search Console, which I've already set up and verified, and then we add that in there. And that'll take some time for Google to figure that out. So I'll come back in a future video and see how many pages have been indexed according to this, but it might take a couple of weeks. The other thing we can do is in Rank Math, I forget where it is, sitemap settings, no, general settings, and then edit robots text. Oh, they've already added it in for us. Have they? It's hard to see. It just looks like an example. Okay, so they've already added the sitemap in there to robots text. That's fine. So that was another thing that I would normally do on my sites that Rank Math handles for you. So now another option I like is if we head to the home page, and if I highlight all of these links, and then where is it? Copy selected links. I like to use Index Me Now. So you see I've already added in the home page when I set it up. Now this is a tool, I don't even know how it works. You have to buy credits and you just add your links in and it will charge you 50 credits. If the page that you're trying to get indexed doesn't get indexed by this tool, they refund the credit. And this has worked really well for my sites to get these pages indexed very quickly. So I'll save that and let that do its thing as well. And I'm not gonna do it for all pages, but what I will do as well in Search Console is I'll inspect the home page and then request indexing whenever it does it, if it does it. And this is really it. I mean, there's not a huge amount to be said. We've done the internal linking. We've got sitemaps created for us automatically. We're submitting those to Google Search Console, and we're using a third-party tool to try and index the archive pages, because all of these pages here, links on those pages are already going to every page on the site, every golf course that we have. So that gives us a really good chance of getting a lot of golf courses indexed. And that's pretty much all there is to it. See, it already discovered the home page, so that must be the Rank Math's auto indexing API that has done that, because they've already found the home page. So there's not much else to do in this video, so I'll leave it here, and in the next video I'll come back and have a quick browse and see what's going on, how many pages we've got indexed, and if we're getting any traffic, because I've set up Google Analytics so we can have a look and see what's going on there. Welcome to video 1 in this completely 100% no-code programmatic SEO case study. So I'm going to try and build a site using no code at all, which is quite hard for me because making it with code is a lot easier for me. Make this example applicable to people who don't have any coding skills or want to just try this out and see what they can spin up very quickly. So I have found a database of statistics in the US. So there's a lot of cities in here, and it covers things like the population, the economy, crime rates, even some data around weather and other things in here, which I think is quite an interesting one. Now, typically I wouldn't recommend just taking a database as is from somewhere, importing it to WordPress and expecting fantastic results, because it's an easy thing to do. A lot of people can buy this and build their own website with the exact same data as you. So I would imagine most of this data comes from the US Census Bureau, which is completely freely available. You just have to go and find it. And they've got quite a nice tool on their website. They have some quite interesting data on their website, and you can mix and match this and add filters to it with geos at state level. For example, you could do all states, and then it will give you information by state here. So we can see the population of white people in Alabama, Alaska. There's a lot of data, and this is just for one table in the Census Bureau. There's plenty of other options here to do with demographics, housing, age and sex. So there's ways to get data that's very similar to this, but is split in a way that could be unique to your website. And then you can take that and perform other calculations on it if you wanted to, either hire a VA or work in Excel to sort of get this into a completely unique format. Data really is the key with any programmatic website, regardless of whether you're using code or not. You want the best data possible, and you want data that gives you a moat that somebody else can't just come and take. Like, I have sites in this niche, not exactly the same as this, but similar, and I'm not worried about other people being able to compete with me because my data is unique. I've done a lot of stuff to make it my own. And that's the big takeaway here, is whenever you're picking data, is to just make sure that it's as unique as possible and you can do something that nobody else can do, or they can't do it easily at least. But for this example, I'm going to use this because there's a lot of information and we can make unique pages out of this. I'll just have a quick look. Again, I'll go and do some keyword research, just grab some of these ideas like air quality and things, and see what kind of searches there are. Comfort index. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of volume, but there's 46 keywords here that Ahrefs knows about, and there may be more beyond that as well. And all of these, even though it's 0 to 10, Ahrefs doesn't really know what these are going to drive in terms of traffic. It's something that's so, because we have the data in the data set, we could easily create a page for each city and state index on it. I'm probably going to build one page per city and have different sections covering everything. Rather than doing a specific comfort index page, I'm going to do a complete statistics of Fort Collins, Colorado, and it will include comfort index as one of those pieces of information, and then I can have the table of contents at the top. And then if the site starts to rank, then we could start breaking these out into individual topics where it makes sense, when we have some data to see what traffic we're getting. Other keywords that we can have here: how many sunny days in Seattle, Denver. A lot of these probably will be answered by Google in the rich snippets, so there are probably already going to be answers there, but that's fine because we're going to target a lot of these on the page. We're going to try and get, I'm going to try and get 1,000 words of content at least on the page for each city and state, and that hopefully will help us to get some long tail stuff. You don't know what you're going to rank for at this stage, so it's better to just try everything and just see where Google puts you. We've also got air quality. This looks like a nice one. Some big traffic terms here for different places, and stuff like this. Worst air quality in the US. We could filter our data in the spreadsheet and sort it from lowest to highest air quality and then create a list. That could be a blog post. Doesn't have to be programmatic. We could just pull the list and then copy and paste it into a normal WordPress template and then write about each place and then link into them. So you can target things. Once we've got this, we can start to target more specific topics that don't need to be programmatic. Water quality is another one. And I think there's more data around this as well. I think you can get data. I've definitely seen programmatic sites targeting water quality, which has a lot of information about the pH in the water, different things for city state, and maybe even zip codes as well. So there's ways to expand this out further. Unemployment rate, huge. Not sure I trust the keyword difficulty. It seems like relatively low for these, but there's a lot of keywords here as well. And what else we got? Property taxes. So we have that in the database as well. So we could do a section on property taxes. Elevation levels, which could come into the weather as well. Air quality, weather, elevation. Median household income, probably too competitive to really go after, despite what these say. But we'll put it on the page and see what the long tail brings. So that's the project, that's the keyword research that's all I'm doing. I just want to see that there is information there. And there is, and I know this niche can be a big traffic generator. And I have display ad sites in this niche doing really well, or similar niches at the very least. So that's where we're going with this project. And it's going to be a lot easier than the other case study that I did, because I'm not going to do any data manipulation beforehand. I'm not going to do any code whatsoever. So in the next video, we can dive straight into WordPress and import this database as is, basically. So head to that video now and we'll get the site rolling. Okay, so I've downloaded the data and this is the exact format that it came in. The only changes that I made were that I removed the zip code column and the metro area columns because they had blank values. And I noticed that we only had the state abbreviation. So what I did was I created a list. They have, one of the downloads was a state file, which has both the abbreviation and the state name. So I created a list in another sheet of abbreviation to state name, and then did a VLOOKUP in here. So this VLOOKUP will get the correct value for the state, because we're going to need that not only for talking about in the content on the page, but also I'm going to add tags to these posts so that on the Alabama page, I can list all of the cities in Alabama, hopefully without any code. So I'm going to probably use Generate Blocks query loop plugin for that, where I can filter these based on categories or tags. So we have the data. We can now go into WordPress, which I've set up just with a few plugins. Custom post type UI, I've created a cities custom post type, which is basically just the default settings, and I've added categories and tags to it. So now all the cities will come up in here. There'll be like 40,000 posts in here by the time we're finished. So in this video, we're just going to set up the import and go through all the values there of what you can change. So we'll go to all import, new import, and we'll upload a file. I've got it on my desktop ready to go, and this is the one that has the state values in it. So we'll upload this. It'll take a few seconds to crunch this because it's a big file. We'll import it to cities, and then WP all import will just show us an example row, so we can just check that all of the data is there. And it should slugify all of the column titles as well, because I think the columns in the spreadsheet, the headings on there were they were like this. So pop density with dots and stuff like that. So it'll probably simplify that for us a bit as well. So look, it's simplified this down. And what you could do as well, obviously I just chose to remove the columns, but you can add filtering options in here as well. So you could filter based on this. So if you only wanted to import Alabama, for example, we could just import cities where the state is Alabama. So there's options there to change the import beforehand if you didn't want to do it in Excel. So now we have the state name. We can do the post title will be, let's just say we'll put title in here. So it'll be, I think we probably need to put the state name here as well, because there might be, Abbeville might also be a city in a different state. So we want to specify that it's for Alabama. So Abbeville, Alabama population and statistics. We can always change this later once we know what keywords we want to target on this page. And we've got a lot of information here. All of the information in the row that we're currently on is in here. So we can add all these in to create content. I'm not going to write the template in this video. I'm going to do all of the other setup first, and then in the next video we're going to write the template, because it's going to take some time to get that right, because we're going to need to research a bunch of these things and add some context to really flesh out the page. So what we want to do is, let's go to taxonomy, and I like to add tags. So we can add, well, we could do multiple tags, or we can do a single tag. I'm just going to add a single tag for now. All I want really is the tag to be state hyphen and then the state name here. So this means that hopefully later, if we want to show lists of these cities, we can filter them based on this. So we could do state Alabama, and we could add something in there that would only show for Alabama. And we can obviously, I haven't got the custom fields plugin activated on this one. You need the add-on for that, which I'm not going to use, but we could add custom fields as well if we had the pro version. So there's two options there to add custom fields. I don't think we need it for this build, just because I tend to use that if I'm going to like do some sort of extra coding with the data. I'll add these on, save the values to a custom field, and then I can do if else. I can do looping through data or calculations on numbers, that kind of thing. I don't think I need that for this particular one. Other options, we could leave comments, we could close comments. Let's set the post to random dates. We'll just make it a couple of years. Go back to November 2nd, 2020, and now we'll just pick a random date. Slug, because it's going to have city in the URL anyway, we just need it to be this slug here, and that's it. Actually, not true, because like I said, some towns or cities might be the same name but a different state. So we could probably do state. So city and then state. That should be unique enough then for us conflicts. Okay. And I think that's pretty much it. There's not a lot else to do just yet because we're not doing the custom fields. So if we preview that, all we'll have right now is the title. We could even change it and do it population and statistics in, or population and statistics for. Maybe that's a bit nicer. Oh, one thing I didn't do actually, let me quickly, because there is another thing we need to do here. I'm just going to save this as city template. Nope, just save it in. All right. Go to plugins, add new. Need rank math. Need rank math WP all import extension. This one. Because we need to save some of these settings so we can set the title, the SEO title in that. So I'll activate that. Go back to manage imports, edit template. Now we've got this option here. So we can set an SEO title. So we could do title, state name, population. So So that's the main keyword of the page, will be population, and then we can do weather, demographics. What else do we have in here? Taxes, maybe income, maybe not weather. Income, demographics, taxes. What else do we have? Crime. So all this data, and we can also set a description as well. On the population of, we'll just copy these rather than drag drop. Find statistics and information on the population of Abbeville, Alabama, including household income, demographics. Just check what kind of tax information we have. I can't remember. Property tax and sales tax. Crime rates and more. So that's really it. So we'll resave the template. So when we import this now, it will just, all of these posts will have an SEO title ready. They'll have a meta description ready. The next step is to really nail this template, because that's going to be what makes or breaks this website. So I'll stop it here and I'll go and prepare some research for how we can get this done properly, and I'll write it as we're on the video so we can see how that could be built out. I'll save that. Okay, so head to the next video and we'll go through this template. So in the last video, I said that I was going to write this template live on this video, but as it turns out, it took a bit longer than I expected. So I've actually already written the template that we're going to use here, and instead in this video I'll just walk you through it. So all the import settings are the same as they were on the last video. I've just written the article, and it's about 1,400, 1,500 words in total. And I've used as many of these variables as I can. It's still really basic. It's very much still Mad Libs for content, where we have the basic template and then we add in the values within that content. On programmatic sites, this is a great start. It's a good way to really quickly spin up a site and see what's going to rank. But to really improve the site and add more value and make it more unique and compete long term, you probably will still need to do a bit of conditional content and other interesting ways to show the data. So we'll go through this anyway. So I'm starting with an introductory paragraph, which basically says we're going to look at the statistics for title state name, which is Abbeville, Alabama. And then I've mentioned some of the bits of information that we're going to use. And at this point, probably here, I'd put a table of contents. We can use a plugin for that, and then just add a shortcode in there. So starting with population, which is the biggest topic. And it's really a case of just writing out something that you would expect a reader to be interested in. So we can talk about the estimated population, the density, and then here I've gone out and researched what the density is, what the median is, and then comparing it with population figures in the database from the 2000. So it shows the change in population. There was a spreadsheet with the download which explains all of these terms. It has the slug that we're using in the field and also a definition. So in this column here, there's a lot of information. So I took this, and then if I needed to, I could go out and research things in a bit more detail. But this was really helpful to go through and figure out what the units were of measurements. Some of them are per year, some of them are like temperatures in Fahrenheit, some rainfall and snowfall in inches. What else was there? number of physicians per 100,000 population, lots and lots of information here that can be used in the template, which is what I've done. So it's really a proper article. This is the kind of thing that you would hire a content writer to create. It's just that I've done it in a way that it can be populated with all the values. So we're talking about male and female population. So then I have a list which shows the percentage of those, the split between married and single, the household income. We can talk about the median and what it is. It's the average of all incomes. Per capita is calculated by taking the total income of all the people and dividing it by the population count. And that takes into account people that don't just have jobs, so children, retired citizens, so on. Then we can look at the breakdown of households and how much money they make, which income bracket they fall into. So that's more data. And this kind of stuff is where I would probably, if I was using code, what I would probably do here is some kind of bar chart, because I would want to make it visually appealing to people. So I'd have a bar chart which shows these percentages in a graphic that people can. I'd have this as well for the text, but a graphic is a really nice way to show this, so you can very quickly see which income bracket is the most popular in this city. So then we go down into employment and the different careers and the percentage of the population that work in each of these career categories. We can talk about the unemployment rate, and I'm really just padding this out with content that I'm writing around these variables. So I'm taking what I have and trying to contextualize it as much as possible, bolding elements that I think are important, standout metrics and numbers that people will be looking for, and other things like that. Then we go through to job growth, and again, it's just really about taking the numbers and really putting them onto the page in an interesting way. Commuting is quite an interesting one, so it talks about how many minutes it takes the average resident to commute, and then it talks about how many people commute by car, by carpool, by mass transit, which is people using a bus, or train, subway, and how many people work at home. And then the average commute times are in this section here. Physicians per 100,000 people. This is something I had to Google and try and find out why that metric was important. And it turns out that actually the number of doctors in an area is quite a good way to sort of evaluate economic growth in the area. So there was a couple of studies that I linked to here that have researched this information, and in fact they've concluded that the number of physicians in an area do contribute to economic growth. And then I've put a quote in here from this paper by Mary Riley, which basically says, for most states and time periods, the empirical analysis suggests that physicians helped to quicken economic growth. So this is a good one to look at. Another thing that you could potentially do down the road is try and compare this value. So physicians per 100,000 people, and then have neighbouring towns or cities to Abbeville and see which ones have the biggest number of physicians per 100,000 people, as it could be an indicator of the economy in that area. And then we can look into housing, and I've really gone into the median home age. It can be used to compare areas to see which cities are creating new homes, or give an idea of the style or features that houses in Abbeville might have. Talking about median value, which is the middle of a range rather than the arithmetic mean or the average. And then we're talking about whether homes in the area have appreciated or depreciated. So as you can see, I'm really filling this out with a lot of information. And at this point, I don't really know what's going to rank, if anything, but I'm just trying to get a really broad picture of the population and statistics for a given city, and try and throw a lot of things out there and see what we rank for. And then we can double down on those things. At the minute, we're really sort of flying blind. We know a lot of these topics have long tail searches on them, but we don't know which ones we're going to get traffic for. So we go into home valuations and talk about the brackets there, and there's a lot This took a lot of time because you have to drag and drop everything from over here, and it's not the most intuitive. So it took me a while to build this all out. Years built. Talks about how many, so in the spreadsheet, there's data, tells you when the homes were built. Where are we? Can't even find it. I think I've gone blind from all of this. Housing units by structure built, and that was an interesting one. Housing units. So there's another part up here. Trying to see where it was now. That defines what housing units is. I can't even find it. I think I wrote it in the template anyway. So the official term is a housing unit, which is described as a house, apartment, mobile home, or room occupied as separate living quarters. So I basically paraphrased the information from the spreadsheet that I couldn't find. And these are all ways that you just can really improve these templates to give as much information as possible. And then I talked about property tax, and this is basically it's the approximate tax per $1,000 of home value. So then I've given an example, and this is the kind of thing where if I had coding available to me, I'd probably do this. This would be the actual content on the page. So I think, what is it? Property tax rate. So if we go down here, try and find the property tax rate. So property tax rate is $2.88. So I'd probably put 288 in here and then have a list of examples. So if it was 288 and the house was 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, I could have a table here which calculates the approximate property tax for a bunch of different house valuations specific to Aberville. So I've just done an example here for this one, but we can always come back and add some coding in later if we want to manipulate this and show more accurate numbers specific to the location. Then a quick breakdown of weather. Realistically, we're not going to rank for weather because there's too many bigger competitors in the market, but I just thought it was a nice one to add. We had the information, so why not do a little section on it to enhance the word count and also just to give a bit more information about the area in general. And then we look at education, breaking down how much the school districts spend on the students, how many students per teacher, how many students per librarian and per school counsellor, and then look at educational attainment. So how many people in the area have got 2-year degrees, 4-year graduate degrees, master's, PhD, high school diploma. And then finally, just the religious section. There's not much to say about it. It's just percentages of people that identify as these religions or practice these religions, and then a rough percentage of how many people in Aberville actually said they were religious. So that's just another breakdown. And this is all stuff that marketers can use, real estate agents can use to understand the local area and or businesses looking to either start a new business or expand an existing one. All this demographics information is important for business and research purposes. So it could be quite a good little resource. And then finally, I just put a quick conclusion on here, just basically saying we've covered a lot of information. If you found any of it useful, link back. And this is the domain that I bought, uspopulation.org. And if you have any feedback or data requests, click here to contact us. And then as a preview of the article, you can see it's filling in all of the data. And I made sure that every single column had information in it. So we definitely aren't going to get any blanks in here. There might be some that have 0%, but that's fine because it's in context. It's okay. So yeah, it's a pretty conclusive article. It's significantly more content than a lot of programmatic SEO websites, and particularly in the one I've just recorded, which has some code, was probably 250 to 500 words, and this is getting on for 1,500. So I also threw in an external link to the source, those sources there. And that's really it. That's how I would structure a template for programmatic SEO without any code. As I say, it is still pretty much just plug and play. It's just filling in the blanks, but I think that's probably okay because I'm writing a lot of content around the data, which the content's going to be unique anyway. If only to my site, I know all the pages will be the same, but no one else is going to take this data set and write the exact same post on it. So there is some originality here. It's just that I would probably want to take it a bit further with code later to really be confident in the long-term prospects of the site. So that's it. In the next video, I'm going to do the import and we can see what the site looks like. And then I'll do a quick design of the front end and then we'll get it live, try and get the pages indexed and see how it performs. Okay, so in the last video, we had finished writing the template, and since then I have imported all of the cities into WordPress. So now we have nearly 42,000 cities in the cities post type. So what I did as well, using the same template basically in all import, I created a state level template and created a state post type the same way that I did it for cities. And the template is essentially the same. I just removed the state name. So now it just has the title, which is the state name. And then the template is exactly the same. And finally, after that, I imported that into states. So now we have 51 states in there because I think it counts District of Columbia as well. What else did I do? I also, where am I going? All imports, come on. I also did USA, which was a spreadsheet that came with the download, and it's just one row basically, just one row of information here. So all I did was import that as well, and I imported it to posts, and I've used that as the home page. And again, it uses the same template as the state level to pull in all of the information here. A few other things I did before running the import on cities, I changed a few bits. So what I did was I added a state slug here, and I slugified it in Excel using this online tool. So I just I copied literally all of my state names, all 42,000 nearly columns, and then created a slug version of it. And this is so that I can actually link in to these states. So what I did in the import was have a link here, which links to state and then the state slug. So now I've got an internal link to the state on every city page. I also, using the pro version of WP All Import, set up some custom fields. So we have city name, state name, and state slug. And I also, on the manage import on the state level, I also added a custom field for state name and state slug. This is so that I can use these because the post title has got population and statistics in it. So if I start trying to do automatic links, like random links in the sidebar, they're all going to have state name, population, and statistics. It looks a bit spammy, doesn't sound great, so I just want to have the state name. So these I'm going to use for that, basically. So once I've done all of that, I also installed the table of contents plugin, which is pretty much the same one that everyone uses, easy table of contents. So I installed that and I set it in the settings to go after the first paragraph, I believe. Yeah, so it shows after the first paragraph on all city and state pages. So that gives people jump links, which I'll show you in a second. The other thing that I did was some sidebar widgets. If you've watched the other programmatic case study that I did, you'll see I used code for that, and I've shown a way here that you can do that without. So with Generate Press, the pro version of the plugin, of the theme, you get a plugin that extends it, and you get, what do you get? Here we are, Generate Press. So I've enabled elements, and elements are ways that you can add pieces of code and blocks